mostly.
So what would they load the large bales into the containers and then ship them? Is that
Well,
how
they might even process here, yeah, and put them, compress them and put them. They have to
they compress them?
They cut them up and compress them so they're make a payload on a ship, and then if they got it to where they could load the containers here, then they could just put them on the rail and take them right to the port, and away they go. So, and then a lot of there's just a myriad of things that could come out of it, having that port here, that satellite port here.
That's exciting. Thanks for your support, Scott. Appreciate it. All right, we'll now convene as the Board of Equalization and go to agenda item number 3, discussing possible approval of request for tax-exempt status from September 15th, 2020 to December 31st, 2020 by Southern Utah University, APN number B-1253-10-BL, located at 2360 Aviation Way, Cedar City. This was purchased from World Link Aviation Service, LLC. Is Christine?
Dan was just at the door, and he said he's gone to get her, so
Okay.
she'll be here momentarily,
Okay.
hopefully.
Okay, thanks. So, Commissioner Adams, how do they, with the risk, you see a few hay fires because of spontaneous combustion. And maybe Scott could address this too, but when they compress those bales, is there ever a worry putting them in a container and having that happen in Cranston?
Well, they probe them, to see if
okay.
there's too much moisture, and they won't put them on a ship, unless they're below a certain
see.
moisture percentage. And so generally, it's when it's in a stack,
I see.
in a barn, and you baled it too wet.
Mhm.
That's when you get into trouble.
So they'll, okay.
Or before, a lot of people had barns. Sometimes you'd get a lot of snow in the winter, and that would seep down in, and then actually had spontaneous combustion from that moisture. But most people have barns now to take care of that.
Interesting.
It's always a worry, but I've never heard of it happening at the port, though, on a ship.
Christine,
Hello.
how are you?
It's up too high. I can't see you. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
All right. I was notified by Southern Utah University that they purchased a building located at 2360 West Aviation Way. It's a hangar. And they are requesting that it receive exempt status from the point at which they purchased the home or purchased the hangar. If their total taxes for this year is $1,244.63. If the exemption is approved, $881.53 will be due in taxes from January through September 15th, and $363.10 would be exempted for the tax year 2020. Because they are a higher education entity, they don't have to apply each year. So this would just take care of them for the balance of the year, and then next year going forward, as long as that property remains theirs, they would be exempt.
Okay. Any discussion?
The motion.
Entertain a motion?
I move approval of the tax-exempt status from September 15th, 2020 to December 31st, 2020 for Southern Utah University Assessor's Parcel Number B-1253-10-BL, located at 2360 Aviation Way, Cedar City. This was purchased from World Link Aviation Services. The amount exempted is $363.10.
Second.
Isn't it also, wasn't there another amount too for?
Well, that's the amount that the $881.53 is the amount that they will
That
have
will be
paid
due.
up
Okay.
to the
Okay.
September 15th. But the actual amount exempted $363.10.
Okay,
Yes.
gotcha. Thank you
That
for the
correct?
clarification.
Yes.
So it's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you. We'll now reconvene as the Iron County Commission and go to agenda item number 4, presentation of the 2020 tentative budget. Dan Jessen.
So this is kind of a formality. The tentative budget is a work in progress, a living, breathing thing that's constantly being changed. There's not a public hearing on it. I've filed a tentative budget with the commission as required by law on November 1st. Actually, I filed it October 30th, and we're continuing to whittle it down, narrow down missing pieces. So if anybody out there listening, or any of you or myself or any of the department heads are still waiting to get me stuff, please do so. We will have we'll actually have a public hearing on the final version of the budget for 2021 in an upcoming commission meeting. Also, before I get into some of the detail of the tentative budget, I wanted to say that we are currently also working, as we do every year, on doing a final amendment of the current year's budget. The current year has been, well, we all know it's been crazy, but really the largest modifications have to do with dealing with CARES money. The Iron County CARES Impact Grant came to an end December 31st. At least the application period did. We're actively, on Friday, the committee met for a final time and was disbanded last Thursday. And on Friday, I gave award letters to accounts payable to August to get those final checks cut and send out the final denials to those businesses that were still, we were waiting for something and they weren't going to be able to qualify. I'll put that on a future agenda item and actually report on the Iron County CARES grant. It was really successful. It was a lot of work. There were a lot of people that came and gave a lot of time, and we were able to do a lot of good for the businesses. So once everything's kind of wrapped up, I'll present on that. But anyways, so that's the 2020 budget, which we'll amend. As far as the 2021 tentative budget, we have been in meetings with all of the department heads and had budget hearings. Not budget hearings, budget, what do we call those?
Discussion.
We call them hearings. They're just discussions with each department head where they've made their requests. We go through their line items. They make any additional capital requests and personnel requests. I'm very grateful to the commission. They give me a lot of time, and it is not fun. I think we could say, but it is very critical to the operation of the government in Iron County, and it's been good as always. It's been really good. It's kind of where we dig into the nitty gritty. The budget is really our statement of our policy. It's what we're going to do. Almost everything has a financial component. Not everything does, but almost everything does. So this is where we get a good chance to have some interaction back and forth with the department heads and really talk about what we're going to do next year. As far as the actual budget, where it stands, it's not in balance. The budget doesn't have to be in balance till it is final, and then it has to be balanced. I have incorporated in all of the forecasted revenues, and I've been very cautious. 2020 is nuts. It is not exactly what we planned on at all, and 2021 is equally very hard to predict. I think if I just asked everybody in here exactly what was going to happen, I'd probably get that many different answers. So we've taken a very conservative approach to revenues, and I have gone. I didn't use a one size fits all approach on revenues. I really looked at each revenue, what was driving it. But those that normally we would be looking at a traditional method of forecasting, we've kind of had to throw that out the door because what's going to happen? Are we going to have growth? Are we going to have a little bit of a pullback in the economy? It's hard to say. I think a lot of it is going to be dependent on some factors, like, for example, whether it be a second stimulus package. I think we can all point to the first stimulus package as one of the main reasons why our sales tax didn't decline as much as we expected it to. The federal government pumped $2 trillion into the economy, and a lot of that went right to the individual, and they spent that money. And so most of that money has from a good percentage of the populace has been spent. Their unemployment checks, which were higher temporarily, have either gone away or they've gone back down to a very low amount. So we're starting to see some shakiness in the economy. There's a lot of concern about a double dip. We watch to see. I normally like to ignore national politics as much as possible, but we're watching it to see if they're going to do another stimulus. Although I'd like to keep the federal debt low, it will be definitely something that will have many waves that will impact us if there's a second stimulus or not. So in an attempt to be very conservative, we have either kept revenues flat, used the 2019 revenue number. There's a few revenues that we did go ahead and forecast as growing, like, for example, landfill. Our landfill usage has accelerated due to the pandemic. You have a lot of people at home. You have a lot of people that are ordering things online that come with all this packaging and so forth, boxes and all this stuff. And you just have people that are creating more trash, plus the growth of our county. So that's one of the few areas where we're actually forecasting a little bit of growth there. But by and large, we've kept things pretty flat. We've tried to hold the line with most of the new requests for additional spending. As the budget stands right now, the Municipal Services Fund, which has been my concern throughout this whole process, is budgeted at a deficit, and the question is, how much of a deficit is too much of a deficit? What we'll do is we will balance it by pulling money out of fund balance, and that's how it'll be balanced. Basically, we're pulling money out of savings. That's the plan on paper. Of course, every year there's expenditures. There's budget line items that don't go over, that go under. So you can, as you budget, a little bit of a deficit in a county budget before we balance it with fund balance is acceptable. The question is how much is too much? I think we're probably going to be okay. I haven't yet put in the numbers for some of the large capital expenditures that we plan on doing. Like fleet, we've talked about using some excess fund balance next year for fleet. And so once I get that in, that deficit will look worse because we'll be showing the pull a bunch of money out of savings, but that's because we're going to put it into savings at the end of this year. So anyways, I wanted to leave it with those numbers out because they really kind of obscure the true picture of what's going on our operating budget. So I'll continue to do that, and we'll move forward. There's a lot of questions every year. Everybody wants to know what's going to go on with salaries and wages and so forth. What the commission has tentatively agreed to at this point is a 1% across the board COLA. So we have the county's raise program, which keeps track of every individual and how many years they've worked at the county, how many years they've been in their job, and what is their latest employee evaluation. All of that factors in and recommends a raise. That program will not be followed this year, and instead the commissioners have agreed to a very conservative approach in a rough year. Recognizing that cost of living is going up. I think the Social Security Administration was providing a raise of somewhere around 2.5%. So this is a very conservative approach, but also recognizing that cost of living is going up. So that's what's tentatively in the budget, and that's just across the board. So everybody would receive 1%. And so that should answer some of those questions out there. There's been other rumors about other wild things going on, and those are all patently false. That's the only thing that is being considered at this time. As I mentioned, we're looking to take some money which will be put into the fund balance at the end of this year and go ahead and utilize that next year. That's not out of our operations. We're being very conservative with our operations budget, but that will be put into county fleet program, which will save the county a lot of money in the long run. And it's really a cool thing that we can use some of this one-time money to do a one-time event or really kickstart this program that will save the county a lot of money. Department heads, I will be sending out updates later this afternoon and into tomorrow on the tentative approval or denial of some of the requests that were made in budget hearings on their capital items and personnel. So I'm sure usually when I send those out, sometimes everybody is good with it. People say thank you, and I tell them not to thank me. People get mad at me, and I tell them not to get mad at me. But it is an effort. I hope everybody realizes everybody is micro-focused on their own department, which is great. I hope that everybody will take a look at also the county as a whole and recognize the hard decisions that these three individuals up here have to make. If they say yes to all of the things that are requested, or even most of the things that are requested, we're quickly out of balance, and the only way we balance is doing tax increases or cutting somewhere else. So I just appreciate when those departments can look at it and say, this is a rough year. I'm gonna kind of keep my requests to needs and not wants. But again, I think things went pretty good this year. We will send out those updates. If you have any questions, if you think there's something we didn't understand in the process, feel free, reach out to myself, reach out to your commissioner. But that's pretty much it. My office is open. I'm transparent to the public. The tentative budget is it is technically a public document, although it's literally changing daily. So I don't post it on the internet until we kind of get it wrapped up and get it balanced, and then I start posting it ahead of the public hearing. And so the public has plenty of time to come in and to scrutinize, ask questions, and then make their voices heard at the public hearing. So that process is ongoing. I do keep a track of kind of how things proceed from day to day and any changes that are made after this point. But any questions, statements by the commissioners, anything like that?
I just want to go on record, and I don't want to politicize this, but during my campaign, I told my constituents that I would not accept a pay raise as a commissioner. That has proven to be difficult, even though the 1% is small. As you've explained to me, Dan, that's difficult to segregate that as one person not to do that. If that's difficult to do and that goes through, I will earmark that 1% and donate it to charity or whatever. So I'm not accepting that, but I just wanted to be on the records. And like I say, I don't want to politicize, but that's a promise that I made. So I just want that on the record.
I just want to say thanks so much to Dan. He's an amazing auditor. Makes our job as commissioners a lot simpler. It is an arduous task to prepare a budget, but it's so important to get it right, and we appreciate Dan very much.
Just going to echo what Alma said.
Exactly. Yeah, Dan's amazing. We can ask him something about a bill, and it's right there. He knows right where it is and how much, and he's very organized and just does a great job for us. So thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. We'll go to agenda item number 5. Consideration to abate prorated taxes for APN D-621-2-1 after structure fire. Proration pursuant to Utah Code 59-1-1004.5. And Brian, are you handling this? Cindy Bullock, our assessor, is out of town. So Brian?
Yeah, she's on. She's out today. So anyway, this is a manufactured home that burned down back in March. So we didn't get any notification about that until later, and so we're just abating that. And okay. At this point, we're recommending that. So
We just have the amount.
Yeah, it is $808. According
What
to
was it?
Cindy, $808 is according to what Cindy wrote down. Is that what you got too, Nicole, I think? Anyway, yeah.
The big 80807, so would leave taxes of 15701.
And is this similar to the one that we voted on last week? Same situation?
I think so, yeah.
Okay. Or not last week, last commission meeting.
Not my copy if you, so, it's not the fire reserve.
Okay.
Now, is this considered an abatement or a forgiveness of the tax due? Because we can't change the levy or the
It's
appraisal. We can't change the
yeah.
appraisal at this point. So it's
Just an abatement is what my understanding was, yeah.
okay.
Yeah, I'll entertain a motion.
I would move move to approve to abate prorated taxes for auditors, APN D-621-2-1 after a structure fire occurred. This is proportionate pursuant to the code 59-1-1004.5, and the amount abated would be $808.07.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded as described. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thanks, Brian. Item number 6, presentation regarding the Utah Mobile Crisis Outreach Teams, which is the acronym is MCOT. And Roger, are you going to present this today? We got Michael Deal and Roger Nielsen with the 5-county behavioral health, and we appreciate them making the trip up from St. George and braving the storms. And
Yeah,
thank you.
worked out fine. Again, Mike Deal with Southwest Behavioral Health Center. Good to be with you today. We appreciate this opportunity to share a little bit about Southwest and some of the services that we provide. For those who are here with us as well in this public meeting, just a reminder, as you mentioned, Commissioner, that Southwest is a public entity. We are a 5-county public behavioral health center, so we serve Washington, Iron, Beaver, Garfield, and Kane counties. This is a good opportunity, and we won't take too long. We really could go through an entire continuum of services, but we want to focus today on our crisis services, particularly. We know statistically 1 in 5 individuals is going to experience some kind of a mental illness, a mental concern in any given year. And so if we look around the room, we all probably know who that might be. Us, personally, or family members or friends, somebody who's dealt with some anxiety or depression. It's a pretty prevalent number amongst our communities. 1 in 17, however, may be experiencing more of a profound and debilitating mental illness, something dealing with a psychosis of some sort, bipolar disorder, major depressive disorder. Obviously, these are concerns in our communities. Utah, I think we'd like to think our numbers are percentages would be smaller than elsewhere in the country, but we obviously see that's not the case. We deal with this just like we do in other communities around the country and around the world. Suicide, of course, is a significant concern in our western states and in Utah. Suicide is the leading cause of death of our 10 to 24-year-olds in this state. And so that's a significant concern for all of us. And the work that we do at Southwest really is to address those things, education, prevention, and treatment throughout our communities. We appreciate Commissioner Cousins, who sits on our board, and this opportunity again to share with the balance of the commission today a little bit about that. Just quickly on our crisis continuum. So for many years, Southwest has provided a 24/7 crisis access to residents in our community, a 24/7 call line that reaches a therapist. So anybody, client, non-client, resident, somebody visiting the area, I guess, could call and reach somebody to talk to. In the last couple of legislative sessions, the legislature's changed that a little bit, and the University of Utah, the Neuropsychiatric Institute, UNI, which is soon to be the Huntsman Mental Health Institute because of a rather large donation to that entity, has taken that crisis line responsibility on as a statewide crisis line. So that's been an effort to really reduce some of the costs at the local area by having that taken on. But Southwest and a few other areas have piloted what we want to talk about today, which is the Mobile Crisis Outreach Team. And we piloted that particularly in relation to a rural community. As Roger explains it, you'll see that in an urban community, an area, it's pretty understandable how that works, and yet in a rural area or frontier area, as we look at some of our smaller counties, a bit of a challenge. But we've done this for several years now, and we'd like to talk about how this component on a crisis continuum works. So again, a crisis access to a trained therapist through a call line available to all folks. Sometimes that's sufficient, sometimes that's not enough. Talking to somebody on the line isn't necessarily the solution for everybody. So the next step on that is the crisis outreach team. So Roger, if you'd like to spend a little time, just share that with the commissioners, and then any questions you may have, we'll be glad to address those.
Thank you, Mike. Roger Nelson, and I'm a program manager for all of the crisis services for Southwest Center and just over the 5 counties. So the mobile crisis outreach team is what it is. It's mobile. So we have clinicians, so a licensed therapist that is primarily responsible for taking the phone call, as it either comes from the University of Utah Neuro Institute or through direct calls. So we do have a direct line that any of the 5 counties can access, and then part of that mobile team is that clinician and a either certified crisis response worker or a peer support specialist, and somebody who's experienced and recovered from severe mental illness or substance abuse. So in the more urban area urban areas like Utah County, Salt Lake County, Davis County, they'll have like separate teams, crisis teams that take the calls, a separate team that goes and mobile responds, and then a third that will do some stabilization work, follow-ups and stuff like that. Where we're one team. We do all of that. We'll take those crisis calls, we do the mobile responses, and we do stabilization. We just not enough money, not enough bodies to have separate teams that do all that. Obviously, in some of our more frontier areas, our mobile response is a little bit slower. So it's not as, sometimes it's harder to get to within an hour, which is kind of the standard, is being able to respond to a crisis call mobily within an hour. We have a team of 8 staff that are in Washington County and a team of 8 staff that are in Iron County. So Iron County team will respond to Beaver County and Garfield County, and the Washington County team will respond Washington County and Kane County. So, but we like to think that we can get to places within an hour or so. Obviously, like Bullfrog Elementary School, it's quite a ways away. It takes a couple hours to get there. But we do everything we can to resolve crises by phone. Very first thing is try to de-escalate the situation. What is that need? We're assessing, do they need medical or EMS response, and we can dispatch for that, or get a hold of 911 for that. And then just kind of helping individuals or families look at what their options are, and then come up with an action plan. What's their action plan to overcome this crisis? Sometimes they just need a little bit of hand holding, and we're happy to do that out in the community. So there's times that we get called out by law enforcement when they realize this is something that's a little more mental health related, less law enforcement related, and other times when hospitals call, just saying, what can you do to help stabilize this individual once we've assessed them for medical and medicinal kind of purposes. When they're medically stable, then we can help stabilize them that day or the oncoming weeks. So any
So what is the phone number if somebody's in a crisis? If our family had a crisis and at midnight we need a call, what's the phone number they'd call?
So there's several numbers, and most numbers, like national and otherwise, will end up at Uni. Our personal number that we've had for almost 10 years is 435-414-4362.
4362.
And that's the number that Uni will call when they there's times when they get crisis calls and they'll dispatch us out saying, hey, there's somebody that's out there. But we give that number out, the 414 number, to anybody that's their Southwest Center clients. For us, it's a little bit easier if I get a call from somebody who's calling that number, and I can look them up in the computer and just see who they are. If they're already established, you see what they're working on with their clinicians or with the psychiatric, the medical team, and then be able to see when the last time maybe they were in crisis or whatever. And I can put in another note that then their ongoing care team, whether it's the med team, the therapist, or the case manager, they can see those notes. Versus Uni doesn't. They don't have access to our system. They don't know. So a lot of times they're just simply like, we got a call. Here's a call for you.
So if somebody called 911, they'd route the call to your number or to your team.
911 would probably route it to Uni.
To Uni. And then
And that number is 1-800-273-TALK, which is that's what you were talking about, Roger. That's a nationally advertised number. If you dial that in Utah, it'll take you to the Neuropsych Institute we just mentioned.
that was 800-273-TALK.
Yeah.
Okay.
And just maybe as a quick side note to that, our Utah legislative delegation at the federal level has been responsible this last year. The president just signed it about 2 weeks ago. Eventually, we'll see the 988 number, which is which will be a national, nationwide mental health crisis number to avoid 911 calls that don't need to be addressed by law enforcement necessarily, but somebody in crisis. So eventually, even the 273 talk may change, but today that's the number, or the number that Roger gave locally.
Okay. So our sheriff Carpenter's here, and I've talked to him about this a little bit. And maybe if he wants to comment, that'd be great. But if you get called out on a situation, how do you guys know that? I mean, do you usually involve law enforcement always just to make sure you're safe, or how do you assess what the needs are and that?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and it's probably my number one concern. My number one concern is my staff safety, and then secondarily is community safety. So for years we've been responding when parents would call saying, my kid's out of control, can you come and help? And we would just respond. And there was an understanding or an expectation there that there's a rational, reasonable adult that's can attest to the safety of the home, and now it's a process that we actually ask if there's a single individual that's suicidal maybe, or they're just psychotic, or just experiencing a pretty severe emotional disturbance or break, then we'll ask for law enforcement to just kind of clear the scene or just respond with this. Once we know that the scene is safe, staff aren't in trouble, aren't in danger, then we can dismiss law enforcement and we can take care of that individual in there for that moment, and then for stabilization, follow-up. And there's times when law enforcement will call and say, hey, this is a mental health issue. Will you guys come out? The expectation is that scene's already clear and safe, and then once we get there, they can bail. And we're happy to stick around. So there's with COVID, it's brought a whole nother level of safety concern. We're just asking for symptoms. We come with masks on. If they're happy to step outside and just work with us out in the front yard, makes us feel a little bit more secure. We wear our masks all the time, even if they don't. But so we're trying to that respect both ways, that they feel a little bit safe with us coming in as well. So. But yeah, it's been a concern. It's been our concern to make sure that we're safe. We do. We always arrive in pairs, and part of the training with the crisis responders is kind of staging before they go in. What's the goal? What's our plan? What if things go sour? What's the plan there? Just to try to mitigate any potential hazards and dangers.
I've got a question. Do you have, so if law enforcement responds and it becomes a mental health issue more than a criminal issue, what resources do you guys have do you have any resources to take that instead of a suspect, now they're a patient or a client? Do you have any resources to take them out of that situation and house them for a minute until the crisis is over?
So yeah, some of those resources are less robust than what we'd hope. We don't have, ambulances and stuff like that. If somebody's quite extreme, we have called ambulances in to safely get someone to like a medical facility. Sometimes they need some psychopharmacology to help de-escalate them. So our first resource is our de-escalation skills, verbal and psychological, and then from there there's like a youth center, the Iron County Youth Crisis Center, Washington County Crisis Center, that will take youth, and then from there, like Southwest Center has inpatient facility. Not always that there's an open bed waiting. But we do contract with Intermountain Healthcare that has inpatient psych facility, so they do see a lot of our patients.
Okay.
So Commissioner Blake has been in law enforcement most of his life, and I'm glad he asked that question.
So Commissioner, maybe I'll also address. I mentioned it to Sheriff Carpenter just a few minutes ago as well. Washington County was fortunate this last legislative session to get some funding for the term is a receiving center.
Right.
And Intermountain has had what they've called an access center for a couple of years down at Dixie, which is a walk-in facility if somebody's in a mental health crisis, don't need to go through the ER, which again is an expensive way to go. Ideally, you don't have to have law enforcement involved, but a family, they could take you to this access center, and it's a place where there's a nurse, there's a therapist, there's a doctor, there's medication available, whatever the case might be. The receiving center that Washington County is hoping to build looks a lot like that, but it's really geared more towards the law enforcement side. So if law enforcement, sheriff's deputy, local police have arrested somebody been intervened with someone, but ultimately it's because of an addiction, because of a mental illness, that this really isn't somebody who should be charged with a crime and sent to jail. This is somebody who may not need to be at home for a while or may need to be just out of the situation they're in. So the receiving center is going to be a kind of a no refusal 23-hour, so it's not a residential program, people won't live there, but it's a drop-off location, it's a walk-in location. Now, it's a Washington County resource currently. In essence, it's a pilot to see how it works in a smaller community. I mean, obviously, Washington is growing and larger than our other 4 counties, but clearly it doesn't hit this threshold of, we were just down in Phoenix looking at their facility with 4.5 million people in the community. So it's how do you scale that to make it reasonable, to make it affordable, but to provide the very thing you're talking about. As Roger points out, we have access to some Washington County resources, even for our Iron County residents. We have 3 residential programs that we manage in Iron County that may or may not have beds available that we work with. Of course, we work with both the hospitals in Cedar City as well as Washington. So there are resources. Hopefully we're getting more access to those types of resources, and I hope that Washington's will eventually kind of demonstrate what we can do in a scaled down version of some sort, that Iron would be kind of ripe for the next opportunity to do that, I would think.
Well, and as we've talked to the sheriff and the prison folks, that's been the real concern is there's so many, it almost, for those that have mental health issues, they always seem to end up at the prison, right? And so they're dealing with that, and it's difficult. So do you see this being a real asset, the receiving centers, to alleviate that?
Definitely. And there are distinctions. Again, I mentioned this to the sheriff. I mean, clearly someone with a mental illness or an addiction can knowingly commit crimes and belong in jail and, to be convicted of whatever those things are. So this doesn't simply say, well, a mental illness means you won't go this way, you'll go this direction. We still may have folks that have mental illnesses in our jails or dealing with addictions while they're there, but the argument is they're there because that's where they're supposed to be, not because there's no other services in the community for them. So I think we do see there are 2 paths, but ultimately that's going to reduce the path that's sitting in jail or sitting in our prisons.
Okay. Do you have something you could send us that our web administrator for our Facebook and our website, we could put on there just something that looks professional with the numbers? Hey, if you have a crisis, call this number, and I don't know.
Absolutely.
I just don't think a lot of people know about this. Is the thing.
I think that's a great point. You know, families that have been dealing with these things for a long time tend to know, but a lot of us, if it's kind of the first foray into it, we just don't know who to call.
Right.
And people are concerned. And obviously, you know, a lot of things can be dealt with not necessarily by a mental health team or the public system. You know, we all, if we have access to our own physicians and we're dealing with depression or anxiety, our own local doctor, our own provider can help with that. But sometimes those things get beyond just dealing with some minor depression. And I think that's where you really need some specialties. And that's what I think you'll see most of our local doctors turn to the psychiatrists and the others in the behavioral health field because of that specialty.
Do you have another question?
That's I'm really encouraged by the direction that it's going. I mean, just over the years in law enforcement, I think mental health issues are some of our biggest frustration because we just don't have the resources. Just in personal experience, 99% of the time we'll take somebody to the emergency room and pink sheet them, and a lot of times they beat us back on the street. And many of those times they go back and the problem is the problem's just exacerbated and we're right back out there. And generally at that point somebody's going to go to jail. Where, you know, I'm encouraged that we're moving forward.
As Roger pointed out, a lot of their work, of course, is dealing with the immediate crisis, but then it's also the stabilization and the planning for future services. And you know, I think when families and individuals recognize that there is help out there, we have a great, between Washington and Iron counties and in our smaller counties now, things are improving. A lot of private sector providers, therapists that we use regularly and contract with, they have, you know, we definitely have a growing community of behavioral health specialists, so that's also pretty important for us.
Well, great. Anything we can do to move the process along?
Hey.
Need us to twist an arm somewhere? I'm going to volunteer our services as a commission.
Well, we've talked about this in our board meetings a lot, and I just wanted everybody here to hear it.
Yeah.
You know, so that we really appreciate you guys coming up. Is there any questions from the audience for these gentlemen? Sheriff, do you have any comments or questions?
Not really. I think as you
If you want to come up to the mic, Sheriff, thanks.
As you and I have talked, Paul, we've talked about the MCOT, which I wasn't really familiar with, but what we've been working with is your SMART team, which I was just looking at the phone number, is the same phone number.
It is, yeah.
So it's semantics. You know, we've been working for a long time with the SMART team, and it's been very effective in helping us to deal specifically with people that are suicidal, you know, having suicidal ideations and whatnot. And you know, as they've already talked about, one of the things that's so important here is to be able to make sure that they're safe when they go into a situation. And so, you know, that's really where we want to be able to move as far as law enforcement goes, is to be able to go in and secure the scene and get things calmed down to the point that they can come in and provide the service. You know, we have deputies and officers that are what's called CIT trained, critical incident training, but that's nothing compared to what they're qualified to be able to do. You know, we're really a Band-Aid, and the problem that we run into is, as Commissioner Blake pointed out, is so often we'll pink sheet somebody because there's not a BMed space available. They get turned back out on the street, and when those individuals become a danger to themselves or to others, then we don't really have a choice. We end up having to lock them up in the jail, and the jail's not really the appropriate place for them. But because at that time there is no other place for them, that's the only place that we can go to keep them and the community safe. And you know, so as Commissioner Blake was just saying, we're very hopeful when we see things like the MCOT and receiving centers and things like that are resources that are going to be able to help get these people where they really truly need to be and really getting the help that they really truly need, rather than the jail because it's the only other option. And so we're very encouraged by this.
Great, thank you. Well, If there's no other questions or comments, we appreciate you gentlemen coming up, and thank you very much.
Thanks so much for all you do.
Okay, we're at item number 7. Discussion and possible approval to sell a road department trailer and truck bed. And who's handling that one?
So,
Preston's not here. Says Preston Griffiths. I'm sure that's a
That's
I asked John why the Parowan's mayor's trying to sell our stuff, but anyway. Everybody's entitled to one screw up a day, so. Anyway, he just requests that he be able to sell a trailer and a truck bed that are surplus. So,
Okay.
is there any discussion? I move for approval for the road department to sell a trailer and a truck bed that are surplus vehicles.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded as described. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you. 8, consideration and possible approval of a grazing agreement requested by David and Lori Hewlett. This is 42.27 acre parcel, APN number C-1503. And Reed, thank you.
Morning, Commissioners. There is correction on that. It is actually parcel number 1053 that got flipped around on that. It may have been my fault in requesting it, but it is a different parcel than what's listed there. It is a continuing lease that we've had with Hewlett's for several years, and so it seems pretty simple, but we wanted to normalize it here. In fact, in the past, I think we've even run it just to have the commissioners sign it in the past, but thought it'd be good to have it here and get it approved.
All right.
So we had time to do that.
Any-
This is a
any-
property that's just on old Highway 91 before you get to Summit, where you turn to go up to Red Canyon. The county owns a gravel pit right there that's 42 acres. It's across the road from the Red Canyon subdivision, Red Canyon Estates subdivision.
Okay.
And it's really helps us to keep the weeds down and keeps it cleaned out, and they're only in there for less than 21 days. That's what the lease prescribes, and they usually have about 15 to 20 animals in there, depending on how much vegetation there is, and kind of clean it up every fall. So
Okay.
they haul water to it for their cows.
Any other discussion? Not, I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve a grazing agreement requested by the Hewletts, 42.27 acre parcel, APN C-1053.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to for the lease of the 42.27 acre parcel. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thanks, Reed. Gotta date those. Okay, thanks. Okay, number 9, consideration and possible approval of 3 billboards at 2 locations, 2 signs at 3662 West, 2700 South. This is for Zip Kit Homes, and 1 at 3394 South Old Highway.
Get me?
I don't have it. Do you want me to pull up what you sent me?
Sure, that'd be great.
And this is, what's CR stand for, Reed? CR National Property?
Yeah, that's just the name of their company, CR National.
Okay, all right.
Sorry.
While Chanel pulls that up, I've got it plugged in here, but if you don't have access to this, then I'll pull this out. This is something that we typically don't deal with and haven't done very much, but in the code, it specifies that an off-premise sign qualifies as a billboard in Iron County if it's on a property that's currently being used as commercial or industrial and has a facility, a permanent structure on that property. So we don't have a lot of billboards in Iron County because in the unincorporated area, most of them are located in Parowan or Cedar,
Hamilton Ford.
Canaraville on the Paiute tribe property right there. And so these three are located in that little stretch between where Old Highway 91 crosses I-15, where that zip kit, they want to put two right there, and then one just down a little bit further before you get to the new travel center.
Right there by Middleton Timber, right?
The two are.
The two are.
The other one is down where that new cargo or storage sheds, where they're manufacturing those storage sheds right there.
Right, okay.
That's the property. And so they qualify under our ordinance. The ordinance requires that have a recommendation from the Planning Commission, which the Planning Commission voted and recommended approval for these two locations and the three signs at their meeting last Thursday. And so it doesn't require a public hearing or notification to adjacent property owners. It just requires approval by the commission after a recommendation from the Planning Commission. So it meets the qualifications.
I cannot pull it up, so.
Okay.
We've got it here on our.
You've got it, and you
we've
can
got
look
it.
at the specifics of the height and the size. It all fits the ordinance, and so staff and Planning Commission recommended approval for those.
And I was at Planning Commission, heard your discussion there, so.
Okay.
So I think we're good.
Motion. I move approval of 3 billboards at 2 locations, 2 signs at 3662 West, 2700 South. This is near Zip Kit Homes, and 1 at 3394 South, Old Highway 91, near the CR National property. That's my
Second.
motion.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded as described. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thanks, Reed. Do we have to sign something on that one or not? Okay. Number 10, discussion and possible approval of an assignment of surface contract, Canara Falls Sitla lease to the town of Canaryville, Utah. This assignment would remove Iron County from the overall management of the Canara Falls and allow Canaryville to assume this responsibility in total. Mike?
Thank you, Commissioners. This is a formal agreement that, or assignment that takes the lease that we now have with Sitla and the Canara Falls and reassigns it to the town of Canaryville. So the county will not have any say in what goes on down there. This is a result of a lease that Iron County entered into with Sitla to manage the falls area because of the problems that had been created by numerous visitors inundated in the area and the town itself. And I think we entered into this lease in 2017 and subleased it to the town of Canara with the understanding that if everything went right, we would back out, the county would back out of the lease and sign it over to Canaryville, which we are ready to do. They've done an extremely well job in managing the fees, the providing amenities to the visitors and making sure the falls run smoothly. And as the problems that we had down there with parking, with the town itself being overran by visitors has virtually disappeared. And I credit a lot of it to the foresight of Canaryville. So we're ready to do this. It does take a notary for you to sign, and then we will send it to Sitla, and they will reassign the lease to Canaryville.
Commissioner Blake and I went down to Canaryville, and you were there, weren't you, Mike?
Mhm.
Yeah. And I don't know.
I didn't make that meeting.
But anyway, yeah, it's good, and we're really pleased with Canaryville and their efforts and what they've done, and it's really neat to see this and what it's done for that small community in our county and financially, and it's really, really a great thing. So.
This project to me was really cool because I was approached back in 2017 by Mayor Allred at the time, who said, you know, our town is overrun. People are parking on our front yards. I mean, the trash up in the falls area was nuts. He's like, what are you going to do about it, Commissioner? I was really young in my commissioner term at that point. I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do about it, but let's figure it out. And this was a really good example to me early on in my term of being able to coordinate the county, the town, Sitla, the BLM, and be able to bring everybody to that table And I mean, when you're jumping hoops through, I mean, literally you have town government, county government, federal government, state government, that you have to jump through all of these hoops, and we were literally able to get it done in a short amount of time. I learned a lot of lessons on this project of how to work with other agencies and get things done, and it's, you know, and the financial windfall to Canaraville has been awesome. I mean, their infrastructure, they're able to fix the roads and just all the other infrastructure that goes along with that. I'm really proud of Canaraville. I mean, we've had some bumps and bruises along the way, but we've worked through all those, and I think it's awesome that we were able to kind of get things moving and then hand it off to Canaraville Town to manage. I think it's awesome. This has been a really cool accomplishment.
One other thing too is they used to have a lot of search and rescue calls up that canyon, and they've taken some steps to mitigate that, and that's almost down to nothing the last couple of years, right, David? And so that's really good there too.
I think we went 2 years ago. Two years ago, I think we had 26 rescues out of the canyon, and the last two we've had. Did we have a couple last year?
Probably 7 or 8 last year.
7 or 8 last year. Then we didn't have any this year.
This year we had 3 call-outs, but because of help with other people at the canyon, they did self-rescues.
Right. Yeah, so I think that's a big kudos to the management of the area to keep it safe. It's been cool.
David, you have anything to say, or you come up to the mic if you would and state your name? Thank you.
We would certainly like to thank the commission for all of the help that we've received from you in getting this up and running. It's been wonderful, and as Commissioner Blake says, we have achieved a great thing, and we'd like to continue to do that, and we plan on continuing to do that. And so thank you very much for all your dedicated help. We really appreciate you.
Thank you, David.
Thanks, David.
Appreciate you being here. All right, so if there's no other discussion or questions, we'll entertain a motion.
I move for approval of an assignment of surface contract, otherwise known as the Canaraville Sitla lease, to the town of Canaraville, Utah. Note that this assignment would remove Iron County from overall management of the Canara Falls and also allow Canaraville to assume this responsibility in total.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded as described. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you.
I just want to note that David is leaving us. He's retiring. And Heidi Loveland is his replacement, but we look forward to working with her. But we sure thank you, David. You've been a good person to work with.
Absolutely. Thanks.
Yeah,
Congratulations, David, and
Thanks,
good luck
David.
in your retirement.
It's been a pleasure getting to know you over the last few years.
I'll leave this with Chanel, and she can get with you to note, because it's got to be notarized.
Okay. I'll take care of that. Okay.
This was a copy that Canaraville has already signed. So.
Heidi, welcome aboard. Thank you. Don't recognize you with your mask on, but welcome.
Now you look familiar.
We can all go rob a bank with these masks. Nobody will recognize us. All right. Okay, number 11, Resolution 2020-8, designating a representative and alternate representative for the Utah County's Indemnity Pool's annual meeting to be held November 19th, 2020. And this is in conjunction with our UAC conference, right? That's
Correct.
Can you describe that, Alan, what's
USIP
going
has their meeting there, their annual meeting there, yeah, and we just, because there's elections, we have to have a representative and an alternate in case he's not able to serve, to be there to vote in behalf of the county. So I move approval of Resolution 2020-8, designating a representative and alternate representative for the Utah County's Indemnity Pool's annual meeting to be held November 19th, 2020. The representative is John Whitaker, and the alternate is Jennifer Bradbury.
Okay.
And that's my motion.
I'll second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to designate a representative which is John Whitaker and Jennifer Bradbury, to attend the Utah County's Indemnities Pool annual meeting to be held on November 19th, 2020. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you. We will now convene as Iron County Community Development and Renewal Agency. The acronym is ICCD and RA. And we'll go to agenda item number 12, public hearing regarding proposed Zion Solar Community Reinvestment Project area. So do we want to have you describe it and then open for public hearing?
If I could.
Okay, thank you.
Despite the sense of despair that you probably saw when it goes through item 31 or 32.
Yeah, I saw that and I thought, holy cow, we're going to be at till midnight.
I hope not as bad as it seems on paper.
What was your name, sir?
I'm Adam Long. I'm legal counsel to the redevelopment agency and have been for a number of years. It's always my pleasure to be here. This is, I don't know what solar project, but a number of solar projects have come through Iron County. I think it's been a boon to the county and the other tax entities. I know it's a burden on county officials and staff, but I need to thank John and Chenille and Nicole and Dan and everyone for their work on all of this. It wouldn't be possible without them. I sent Chenille an enormous stack of documents Friday. And I was talking to Nicole that, in some ways it's kind of like you're shooting yourselves in the foot. It's like when you go to the grocery store and see a checker that looks really fast, so you get in their line. The fact that Iron County has been honestly so smooth with this process, allows more of these projects to come in, which I really do think are a benefit to the county. So today we essentially have 4 different project areas we're dealing with. The first is Zion Solar, which is a new one. That's a public hearing, then an adoption of a project area plan and project area budget. Those are the 2 documents that essentially create the project area. And also approval of interlocal agreements. So those are the agreements that get essentially redirect tax money that would otherwise go to the tax entities to the redevelopment agency, which allows the agency to encourage or incentivize desirable development. And finally, a participation agreement, which is the agreement between the agency and the developer that says, okay, you do X, Y, and Z, build a project, pay your taxes, do these other things, and we will give you this incentive or this reimbursement, depending on the project. So that's Zion Solar. The other project areas are Appaloosa Solar and Fremont Solar and Rush Lake Solar. So Appaloosa Solar was a project area that was created a year or 2 ago, maybe 3 years ago at this point. At that stage, the project areas created, the interlocals were all approved. We got all the way except for the participation agreement, so essentially the agreement between the agency and the developer. That project area, that project changed hands. It was originally a company called Onyx Renewables. It's now a local company called R Plus Energies. It's a Gardner Company subsidiary. Luigi Resto was here 2 weeks ago talking to you about this. What they're requesting is essentially a bump of the deadlines out 2 years to allow the project to get developed under the same basic structure, same basic terms, just extending the deadline a little bit. And the same holds true for the Fremont and Rush Lake project areas. Again, they're not as far along as they expected to be, and they've requested essentially a 2-year extension of their development deadlines. Worth noting on all of these, especially the existing project areas, we intentionally drafted these agreements with deadlines in them so that, if our initial expectations were not met, they're obligated to come back to the county and the redevelopment agency and essentially give you an opportunity to say, okay, we still want this, we don't want this, the terms are good or the terms need to change, just so that we're absolutely sure that the county and the tax entities are essentially getting their money's worth out of these projects. For the Appaloosa project and Fremont and Rush Lake, the only substantive change is just the deadlines. The basic percentage terms and year terms are the same. So first up is a public hearing on the Zion Solar project area. Ryan Fitzpatrick from Next Air Energy, I think, would like to give a brief introduction at the beginning of that public hearing. And after that, I'm happy to help you all.
So are we having
walk
this
through
public hearing for how many of these agenda items?
It is only for the project area plan and budget for Zion Solar.
So which is 13, the next?
Yeah, 13 and 14. So any comments on the agenda items 13 or 14 are fair game for the public hearing here.
Okay, so we will declare the public hearing open for this agenda item, and if you could state your name and make your comments.
Commissioners, thank you. My name is Ryan Fitzpatrick. I'm with NextEra Energy Resources, and I'm here to introduce the company a little bit, introduce the Zion Solar and Storage Project as well. So I appreciate your time very much. NextEra Energy Resources is a subsidiary of NextEra Energy, which is based in Juno Beach, Florida. The two main subsidiaries of the company are Florida Power and Light, which is one of the largest regulated utilities in the country, and then there's NextEra Energy Resources, who I work for, and we're the development side of the house outside of the state of Florida. And so NextEra Energy it's a Fortune 150 company. It's a lot of times we're often one of the larger companies that nobody's ever heard of, but we're excited to be in Iron County, to have a prospective development project here in Iron County. And we've got additional interest in Iron County as well. But for the Zion Solar and Storage Project, we're talking about an 80 megawatt storage project paired with an 80 megawatt solar project. And we're working to get the projects contracted. I think that these are really positive projects for the county and for local community. The projects are located near Cedar City. And it would be about a $150 million investment in Iron County, and would generate new tax revenue and the other benefits that come from these renewable projects. So I really do appreciate your time today and your consideration of our proposal here, and I'm happy to answer any other questions that you may have.
Okay.
With the storage system, how many hours a day does that add beyond the sunlight hours?
It can add, we're talking about a 4-hour storage battery, and so 80 megawatts and 4 hours of storage on this project.
Great.
It's a big battery. Any other comments or questions in this as we have this public hearing open? Seeing none, we'll close this public hearing. And so are we voting? Are we approving these two agenda items together? Is that what we're doing, Adam? Or are we separate?
I'm okay with doing it either way. These are, a very large number of resolutions, part learning from past experience with these big projects. From the developer side, when they go to financing, there are, I don't know how many umpteen different lawyers in different cities that look at these and say, okay, are all the I's dotted and T's crossed? So we have a very thorough paper trail. Mm-hmm. As far as motions for approval, I don't have strong feelings on that either way, unless Mike does.
When you say all the 13 and 14 together right now, and then we'll address the other ones. Okay, so
I would make one request while I'm thinking about it for the project area plan. If you could make the motion that we can update the legal description. Right now we have a description of all the parcels, and we're waiting on just a simple outer boundary description. So not changing the actual area, just to make sure it's as clean as can possibly be.
Okay, Reed's got a question.
I would also echo that same sentiment we've had as we go through the conditional use permit process and refine that. It's nice to be able to amend the boundary to be so that we have the same boundary as conditional use permit, so that it's the same piece of property. We've had to go back and change a number of them up over the years, and we really do need to have the flexibility to amend those boundaries without having to go back and redo the hearings and everything else. So this is the only of the projects we're talking about today that hasn't been through the conditional use permit process. So we want to make sure that we have that ability to make sure that we sync up.
Yeah, and according to the developer, Ryan can tell me if I'm wrong, but they're confident in the outer boundary of the project area right now, that we will not need to expand it or reduce it in the future. So we've made sure to get to that point before we come here.
Okay. All right. Any other discussion? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I would move for approval, item number 13, ICC-DNRA Resolution 2020-2 approving a project plan for Zion Solar Community Reinvestment Project Area, as well as item number 14, the ICC-DNRA Resolution 2020-3 approving the budget for Zion Solar Community's Reinvestment Project. Note in that that includes the ability to update the legal description as needed in those projects.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded as described for items, agenda items 13 and 14. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thanks, Adam.
Okay, next on the agenda is item 15. This is approving the interlocal agreements for the Zion Solar Project. These interlocal agreements effectively allow a 50% development incentive. It allows the agency initially to receive 100% of the tax increment generated. The agency then makes what seem to be called mitigation payments, is the accepted jargon, back to the taxing entities of some of that money. That's really based on some nuances of personal property tax law in Utah. This is the way we've done all the projects in recent memory. So the agency ends up retaining 65% of the tax increment generated for up to 15 years. Of that 65%, or of that increment, 10% of what the agency retains has to go to affordable housing by statute. The agency has a separate, essentially affordable housing fund that can be used for certain purposes. Those are defined by the legislature. And then a few percent will go to keep the agency's lights on, cover the costs of agency administration, pay my fees when there are other things that need done. It will cover that, so it's not coming out of the county budget. That leaves roughly a 50% development incentive to developers. So the interlocal agreements and also the participation agreement, which is the next item, that's item 22 at the bottom, reflect those same basic terms. The anticipated commercial operation date for this project is January 1, 2024. Well, okay, the deadline is January 1, 2024, since that's the assessment date.
Okay, I move approval of resolution, or Iron County Community Development and Renewal Agency Resolution 2020-4, approving interlocal agreements for Zion Solar Community Reinvestment Project Area.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded as described. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, number 16 is amendments to the interlocal agreements to the existing Appaloosa Solar Project area. Again, this is essentially pushing the date back a year or two. The anticipated commercial operation date is also December 31, 2023. It doesn't make any other changes to the percentages or other arrangements, just moves that deadline back to the end of 2023.
Okay.
Okay, I would move for approval of ICC DNRA Resolution 2020-5, approving amendments to interlocal agreement for Appaloosa Solar 1 Community Reinvestment Project Area.
Second.
Moved and seconded as described. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, number 17. This is the flip side of those interlocal agreements. This is the agreement between the developer and the redevelopment agency. Again, the things they have to do to qualify for these incentive payments. Same basic terms as the interlocal agreements as far as years and percentages, with a structure similar to what I described for the Zion Solar one, with an allocation toward affordable housing and agency administrative costs.
This is pretty good job security, isn't it, Dad, on all this stuff?
Hey, like I said, this wouldn't happen without the county's support. And I do these type of projects, redevelopment projects, solar and otherwise, throughout the state. And one of the things I really see as a benefit to Iron County is that the agency was, in its infancy with no money not that long ago. 5 or 6 years ago, if my memory serves. Now the agency is funded and has the ability to do these projects and whatever other beneficial projects might come along without saying, hey, we need some money from the county to make this happen first. So I do think is and will be a great benefit to the county overall.
Just teaching, there's lots of stuff there to go ahead.
I move approval of Iron County Community Development and Renewal Agency Resolution number 2020-6, approving a participation agreement for Appaloosa Solar 1 Community Reinvestment Project Area.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve agenda item number 17 as described. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. 18.
These are the interlocal agreements for Fremont Solar. Again, a project area that was created. Interlocal agreements and participation agreements were all approved and adopted by the county, the other tax entities. This is, again, just seeking the deadline pushed back to the end of 2023. Worth noting is that the Fremont and Rush Lake project areas are what we call community development areas instead of community reinvestment areas, meaning there's no mandatory housing allocation in these, and the percentage split with the tax entities reflects that. It may make sense to approve the interlocal agreements for Fremont and Rush Lake at the same time, since they're essentially twin project areas. That would be item number 18 and item number 20.
So 19,
18 and 20.
So we'll just
19 doesn't.
19 is the next step.
we'll come
Oh,
back to that
gotcha.
one. Okay.
Making sure I'm reading the right things, not skipping anything important. I move for approval of ICC DNRA Resolution 2020-7, approving amendments to interlocal agreements for the Fremont Solar Community Development Project area, which is item number 18. Also, item number 20, the ICC DNRA Resolution 2020-9, approving the amendments to interlocal agreements for Rush Lake Solar Community Development Project area as well.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve agenda item number 18 and 20. All in favor?
Aye.
So we'll go to 19.
Yeah, so we can talk about 19 and 21 together. Again, these are the counterpart to the interlocal agreements. These are participation agreements with the developer. Technically two separate development entities, but same company, overall company that's doing them. Again, the terms match what's in the interlocal agreements. Expected commercial operation by the end of 2023. Again, not changing the percentage terms or really any other substantive changes.
Okay.
I move approval of ICCD and RA Resolution 2020-8, approving a participation agreement for Fremont Solar Community Development Project area. That's item 19. Item 21, I move approval of ICCD and RA Resolution 2020-10, approving a participation agreement for Rush Lake Solar Community Development Project area.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve agenda item number 19 and 21 as described. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. 22.
22 is the participation agreement for Zion Solar, which is the project area we just had the hearing on. Again, essentially a 50% development incentive for a period of up to 15 years.
Okay.
All right. I'd move for approval of ICCD and RA Resolution 2020-11, approving a participation agreement for Zion Solar Community Reinvestment Project area.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve agenda item number 22. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And worth noting, just from a logistical perspective, these participation agreements will come back to actually be executed once the interlocals are approved by the other taxing entities. Some of these interlocal agreements, for example, with the county and SSD2, will be ready to sign today, and John and Chenille have execution copies. Just a heads up that you'll see some documents trickling in over the next 6 weeks or so that have been approved today.
Okay. All right. We will now reconvene as Iron County Commission and then convene as Iron County Unincorporated Area Services District number 2, UASD number 2. And go to agenda item number 23.
So 23, 24, 25, and 26 are counterparts to the resolutions you just approved at the redevelopment agency level. So the Unincorporated Area Services District number 2 is a taxing entity for these projects, meaning this district levies a tax on the property in these areas. So there's an agreement between the agency and the district, essentially where the district allows the agency to receive a portion of the tax increment that would otherwise go straight to the district. This provides the funding for the incentives that are needed to make these type of projects work. Again, agreements we've already discussed from the agency side, just the approval on the other side here.
Okay.
I move approval of Unincorporated Area Services District number 2, Resolution 2020-1, approving an interlocal agreement for the Zion Solar Community Reinvestment Project area. That's item number 23. Also, UASD number 2, Resolution 2020-2, approving an amendment to the interlocal agreement for the Appaloosa Solar 1 Community Reinvestment Project area, item 24. Item 25, move approval for UASD number 2, Resolution 2020-3, approving an amendment to the Fremont Solar Community Development Project area, Item 26, UASD number 2, Resolution 2020-4, approving an amendment to the Rush Lake Solar Community Development Project area.
Second.
It's been moved and second to approve agenda items 23 through 26 as described. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. We'll now reconvene as the Iron County Commission and go to agenda item number 27. Is there some of these we can combine, or?
Yeah, 27 we should do on its own, and then 28, 29, 30, and 31 are just like what we just did for the services district.
Okay.
So 27 is the ordinance approving the project area plan. This is the final step in actually creating the project area. It's really just kind of the ditto on what you just did as the agency board.
Okay, I've moved for approval of ordinance 2020-4, approving the project area plan for Zion Solar Community Reinvestment Project area.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve item number 27 as described. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Let's go to items 28, 29, 30, and 31. Do you want me to? I guess I can read all those. 28, Resolution 2029 or 2020-9, approving interlocal agreement for the Zion Solar Community Reinvestment Project area. 29, Resolution 2020-10, approving an amendment to the interlocal agreement for the Appaloosa Solar 1 Community Reinvestment Project area. Item 30, Resolution 2020-11, approving an amendment to the interlocal agreement for the Fremont Solar Community Development Project area. And 31, Resolution 2020-12, approving an amendment to the interlocal agreement for the Rush Lake Community Solar Community Development Project area. So we're talking about those and entertain a motion.
Hey, I move approval of Resolution 2020-9, approving an interlocal agreement for the Zion Solar Community Reinvestment Project area. That's item 28. Item 29, move approval of Resolution 2020-10, which approves an amendment to the interlocal agreement for the Appaloosa Solar 1 Community Reinvestment Project area. Item number 30, I move approval of Resolution 2020-11, approving an amendment to the interlocal agreement for the Fremont Solar Community Development Project area. And lastly, item number 23, I move approval of Resolution 2020-12, approving an amendment to the interlocal agreement for the Rush Lake Solar Community Development Project area.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve agenda items 28 through 31 as described. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
And one more news item. We have been approached by another solar company, S-Power. It's one of the bigger solar development companies, about doing another solar project out just the northeast of the iron mine. That's in its initial stages. I do have a kind of a one-page info sheet that I'll make sure to get to all of you. That's potentially coming early next year, beginning stages of the process. But we expect it to be a very similar arrangement.
So we received a letter from Dixie Power out in the Burl Valley a while back, saying that they were kind of saturated with solar. Does this affect any of your systems?
So really there are two, I guess probably the single biggest hang up to developing a project like this is finding an off-taker. Someone who will sign a power purchase agreement. That could be Dixie Solar, could purchase power from one of these projects. Rocky Mountain Power, in my experience, purchases the bulk of these. Other potential purchases are other Utah power municipalities, so cities that have their own power companies. St. George, for example, is one of the bigger ones down here. But without that PPA being signed, it simply doesn't get developed. And frankly, from a tax entity perspective, even if a project were to get developed and all these solar panels installed in the ground out there and never generate any power, one, we wouldn't have to pay any incentives because that's one of the qualifications of the participation agreement, that the project is in fact operating, and two, they would still pay taxes on it. So we don't. Oh.
Reed, you have a comment?
Yeah.
Yeah, come up to the mic. The reason I brought that up is I just remember reading that letter, and they said that they had almost too much solar in that valley, and it was saturating.
Really little to do with what Adam was talking about in terms of the purchase of the power. It has more to do with the capacity and would have to do with the interconnection agreements that they have with the companies, not the purchase of the power. So it has to do with their physical structure and how it interferes with the blackouts and brownouts that they've been having in power outages. And that has to do with the other part of what it takes to make a project. And Adam was saying the power purchase agreement is one, and they buy in that power. The other is the interconnection agreement that they have to have with Rocky Mountain Power or Dixie Escalante or whoever system that they're getting into. And they're concerned about the switching gear and some of the components that they've used on that. And we're meeting with Dixie and with Rocky Mountain Power to try to overcome that problem and to try to get to the bottom of what the heart of the problem really is and whose gear needs to be updated and who's responsible to update it. Doesn't really have anything to do with the creation of districts or the purchase of the power. So I wanted to clarify that. And the fact that these other projects that Adam's talking about are not in the same grid area for Dixie and where the problems they're having. That had to do with a property that they were looking at a project out there on Sitla property. And I'll mention one other project as well is the one at the old church farm here in Parowan. There's a company that's getting ready and will be applying. Have you talked to them yet?
I don't know.
Okay, it's a big project right here in Cedar Valley that or Parowan Valley that will they're fairly close along a company called Baywa.
Baywa, yeah.
And so there'll be another one as well for them. So it looks like we're looking at 2 and possibly 3 more in addition to what we currently have.
Thanks for that clarification, Reed. I just remembered getting that letter and was just curious.
Yeah, we're still trying to work on that and get all the players together and make sure we understand what the real problems are and that they're not really associated with the power, the purchase of the power or the creation of these districts. So I wanted to separate them.
Okay. All right. Very good. Thank
I'm
you,
happy
Adam.
to answer any other questions. If not, thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure.
Likewise, thank you, Adam.
Well,
Appreciate it.
thank you for
Danny, did we do all that right? All right, we'll go to 32. Man, we haven't had 32 agenda items for a while, have we? Thanks, Adam.
Luckily, we go through them quickly.
We'll go to Jennifer Bradbury. Discussion and possible approval of Section 46 social media policy.
Hello again. All right, the Iron County Sheriff's Office has a social media policy already in place, which has been adapted to encompass all of Iron County employees. I will first read the proposed policy in its entirety, and afterward I would encourage and entertain any feedback, good, bad, or indifferent, in order to make this policy fit within the needs and interests of Iron County. So here we go. Section 46, social media. Nothing in this policy is intended to prohibit or infringe upon any communication, speech, or expression that is protected or privileged under law. This includes speech and expression protected under state or federal constitutions as well as labor and other applicable laws. For example, this policy does not limit an employee from speaking as a private citizen about matters of public concern such as misconduct or corruption. This policy is intended to address issues associated with employees' use of social networking sites and provide guidelines for the perimeters of social speech and expression within the needs and interests of Iron County. In the rapidly expanding world of electronic communication, social media can mean many things. Social media includes all means of communicating or posting information or content of any sort on the internet, including your own or someone else's weblog, blog, journal, or diary, personal website, social networking or affinity website, web bulletin board or chat room, whether or not associated or affiliated within Iron County, as well as any other form of electronic communication. Iron County employees occupy a trusted position within the community, and thus their statements have the potential to breach the policies and performance of Iron County. Due to the nature of work and influence associated with Iron County employees, it is necessary that all employees be subject to certain reasonable parameters on their speech and expression. To achieve this mission and effectively provide service to the public, Iron County will carefully balance the individual employee's rights against Iron County's needs and interest when exercising a reasonable degree of guidance over speech and expression of Iron County employees. Employees should consider carefully the implications of their speech or any form of expression when using the internet. Speech and expression that may negatively affect the safety of Iron County employees, such as posting personal information in a public forum, can result in compromising an employee's home address or any family ties. Employees should therefore not anticipate to compromise the safety of any employee, an employee's family or associates. The same principles and guidelines found in Iron County policies apply to your activities online. Ultimately, you are solely responsible for what you post online. Before creating online content, consider some of the risks and rewards that are involved. Keep in mind that any of your contact that adversely affects job performance and the performance of fellow employees, or otherwise adversely affects contract employees who work on behalf of Iron County, may result in disciplinary action up to including termination. Carefully follow these guidelines and the Iron County ethics policy to ensure your postings are consistent with these policies. Inappropriate postings that may include discriminatory remarks, harassment, and threats of violence or similar inappropriate or unlawful conduct will not be tolerated and may be subject to disciplinary action up to and including termination. Always be fair and courteous to fellow employees and contract employees who work on behalf of Iron County. Also keep in mind that you are more likely to resolve work-related complaints by speaking directly to your coworkers or by utilizing an open door policy than posting complaints to a social media outlet. Nevertheless, if you decide to post complaints or criticism, avoid using statements, photographs, video, or audio that reasonably could be viewed as malicious, obscene, threatening, or intimidating, that disparage fellow employees or members of the community that might constitute harassment or bullying. Examples of such conduct might include offensive posts meant to intentionally harm someone's reputation or posts that could contribute to a hostile work environment on the basis of race, sex, disability, religion, or any other status protected by law or Iron County policy. Make sure you are always honest and accurate when posting information or news, and if you make a mistake, quickly correct it. Be open about any previous posts you have altered. Remember that the internet archives almost everything. Therefore, even deleted postings can be searched. Never post any information or rumors that you know to be false about Iron County, fellow employees, or contract employees working on behalf of Iron County. Maintain the confidentiality of Iron County's private or confidential information. Do not post reports, policies, procedures, or other internal business-related confidential communications. Do not create a link from your blog, website, or social networking site to the Iron County website without identifying yourself as an Iron County employee. Express only your personal opinions. Never represent yourself as a spokesman for Iron County. If Iron County is subject to the content you are creating, please be clear and open about the fact that you are an employee and make it clear that your views do not represent those of Iron County, fellow employees, or contract employees working on behalf of Iron County. If you do publish a blog or post online related to the work you do or subjects associated with Iron County, make it clear that you are not speaking on behalf of Iron County. It is best to include disclaimers such as, the postings on this site are my own and do not necessarily reflect the views of Iron County. Refrain from using social media while on work time on equipment Iron County provides, or personal cell phones that are reimbursed through Iron County while on work time, unless it is work-related as authorized by your direct supervisor. Do not use Iron County email addresses to register on social networks, blogs, or other online tools utilized for personal use. Employees forfeit any expression of privacy with regard to email, text, or anything published or maintained through the file sharing software or any internet site that is accessed, transmitted, received, or reviewed on any department-issued or funded technology system. Iron County reserves the right to access, audit, and disclose for whatever reason any message, including attachments, any information accessed, transmitted, received, or reviewed over any technology that is issued, funded, or maintained by Iron County, including departmental emails, computer network, or any information placed onto storage on any department system or device. This includes records of all keystrokes or web browsing history made at any department computer over any department network. While employees are not restricted from engaging in the following activities as private citizens, employees may not represent Iron County or identify themselves in any way that could be reasonably perceived as representing Iron County in order to endorse, support, oppose, or contradict any political campaign, social issue, cause, religion, product, service, company, commercial entity, or appear in any commercial, social, or nonprofit publication, or any motion picture, film, video, public broadcast, or any website. Additionally, an employee of Iron County shall give specific disclaiming statements that any such speech or expression is not representative of Iron County. Employees retain their right to vote as they choose, to support candidates of their choice, and to express their opinions as private citizens on political subjects and candidates at all times while off duty. However, employees may not use their official authority to influence or interfere with or affect the result of any election or nomination for office. Employees are also prohibited from directly or indirectly using their
official authority to coerce, command, or advise another employee to pay, lend, or contribute anything of value to a party, committee, organization, agency, or person for political purposes. Iron County prohibits taking negative action against any employee for reporting a possible deviation from this policy or for cooperating in an investigation. Any employee who retaliates against another employee for reporting a possible deviation from this policy or for cooperating in an investigation will be subject to disciplinary action up to and including termination. Iron County employees who are not designated to speak to the media shall not respond to media inquiries on behalf of Iron County without direct approval from Iron County Legal Counsel. All media inquiries shall be directed to designated Iron County employees only. So, any questions, concerns, thoughts?
I think it sounds good. Entertain a motion.
So I would move for approval of Section 46, social media policy.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the Section 46 on social media policies. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you, Jennifer.
Appreciate it.
And thank you for your work on that. I know that was a team effort and a lot of work behind the scenes. That wasn't something that was just generated flippantly.
Yes, very much so. Thank you.
Thank you for your work on that.
Appreciate it.
Okay, we'll go to non-delegated items. Number 1, Prairie Dog Matters. Anything to discuss there? County boards.
I thought Terry was going to be here to talk about the position that I texted you about with the Planning Commission. I thought they were in. I thought that was their goal was to get that approved today. But
We did call on Friday afternoon at I don't know what time, and John was already gone for the day. So sorry. It was not on here. We told them it would be on. I don't even know what it was about. The phone call didn't come in to me. I just said it'll have to be on next time. Sorry.
Okay.
Okay.
We'll move that to the next meeting.
That's fine. And we if there's anything that is for like any county boards, it's a non-delegated item that's always on the agenda, so we can. I mean, he doesn't necessarily have to get it on the agenda separately.
Okay.
So if.
You could have came today then as a non-delegate.
Yeah. Okay.
Dang it.
That's all right.
Okay. Seeing no other items we need to discuss, we'll declare this meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.